The central tenet of critical legal studies that there is no neutrality and that everything is infused with power dynamics is fundamentally illiberal in the following sense. It undermines this notion that there are neutral ways in the world of resolving disputes between people within courtrooms, to having discourse across difference, to sorting the resources of society like merit. The idea that there's a neutral idea of, okay, you did well in this class, you deserve this job, you did less well, you deserve this job. The whole notion of merit is something that critical legal studies targets, because it's this idea that there's a neutral way of sorting in society and coming to a resolution that we can all, even if we're not happy with the outcome, we can all agree is legitimate. And instead saying, nope, it's always the more powerful person taking advantage of the less powerful person. In a conversation, you have more power than me, John. You're going to get your view across, and you're going to maybe even make me think that I share it, right? Or that I buy into it, or I accept it. And that's just a matter of your power. And that's that conversation in critical legal studies world is always going to be like that, unless we do something to alter the power balance and put the person who is on the bottom on top. Now I can bully you into accepting my worldview and where I'm in power. Right. Same with merit. Like, you think you got this job because you deserved it. It's only because you were always in power, right. And then you rigged the system, right? And so
the system was rigged by people ahead of me who are like me,
right?
To benefit people like me.
And back to okay, what was it? Be intellectually charitable. Yeah. So there's some truth, right? There's some truth to the fact that power is a part of the way the world works. And observing that and being aware of that is a really great insight that came from critical legal studies. To think about those power dynamics is not bad in and of itself. It's the view that that's all there is and that we can't mitigate it that's troubling. And also, what are we putting in its place, right? So, are we letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? So yes, of course, there will be some unfairness in all systems, like legal realism, said. It's like, for sure, it's not just these abstract rules that are like, we all follow and they sort things and it's completely without, untroubling. But we can call it what it is and say it's troubling without saying there's nothing good there. And the problem is, once you say there's nothing good there, then you say, okay, Duncan Kennedy, like Roberto Unger, what do you want? And their answer,
what positive thing do you want?
And their answer is bizarre, because they're just weirdos. They're like, I think we need like a mind love society. And you're like, what? Like, what's a mind? What is that? And it's like, they like, you smoke too much pot. Like, I don't know, like what? But
this is not the outsider's view of law school. What happens in law school? So it's so funny.
No, but like. It's like, they were literary. Like, it was an academic movement. They didn't really have a view. Right. And so part of what is troubling is this thing that was like this intellectual, like whatever it was, is now like kind of dominant because it made it way into the institutions, which is what I'm going to track how that happened. And when that happened, it didn't come with okay, and here's our plan for society that's going to be better than liberal democracy. It was just, we hate liberal democracy because all it is replicating power imbalances and making it worse, and no plan for what will be better. Because you know what? Like, they're really, this may be the best we can do, even though it is problematic, and recognizing the way it's problematic. Thank you, CLS scholars, for helping us do that. But oh my God, this is really dangerous when it becomes this extreme and makes its way into our institutions in the way it did in law schools.
And speaking about it's making its way into our institutions, these abstract ideas, starting, I guess, in the 1920s and then picked up and energized in the 1970s more systematically by CLS, as you know, moved quickly into, kind of seamlessly into critical race theory, and which leads to for a foundation for DEI.
Yep.
Kimberly Crenshaw was a law
Mhm.
professor, a law student
Yep.
at Harvard at a
Yep.
key time when they were trying to
Yeah.
decide whether to keep CLS in a central place in the curriculum
Right.
or not. So that was kind of a steady. The DEI movement is coming out of these these law schools. And you and I were talking this morning before we came on the show about lawyers are just so fundamental to the rule of law in a democracy that if you have a whole generation or two of lawyers who don't really believe in the law, does that mean they don't believe in democracy? Can you connect it to democracy? You mentioned democracy a moment ago. How wide is the threat? There's a threat to merit you mentioned. I just mentioned the connection to DEI. You want to say anything more about democracy does it affect election integrity? I mean, how do we think about democracy?
Yeah. So, I mean, the rule of law is also a complicated notion. And we've been talking about a lot of philosophical ideas and things like that. But I mean, basically, rule of law is like, look, we're all governed by a set of laws that are fairly implemented, adopted, adjudicated. And that is something that is separate from power and that we can always turn to. So the powerful, the less powerful, all subject to these same laws. But if you think the laws are only the tool of the powerful, then you really don't have that anymore. And the law just becomes another source of power. And so what your object is not to ascertain what the law is and then make sure that we and our clients are abiding by that law, but rather to manipulate it and use it to its extreme for the clients, but choose your right client, choose your right cause. And that's a very different notion. And it means that you don't have lawyers as gatekeepers, as a brake on anybody, the powerful or those who are aspiring to power, to abuse the law for their own ends. And I mean, everybody wants that. So it's like, you may think that's great when I'm the person who's manipulating the law, but you will always find yourself, and particularly more so if you have less power, you will find yourself on the losing end of that game, because you'll find a point in which you want to say, hey, Mr. Person I don't like, who's trying to use the law to achieve some corrupt end. You can't do that because the law doesn't let you. And if you really have bought into this idea that it's actually just all a game, then you can't credibly claim that. You can't. So, just like, when you wanted the people in the Department of Justice to say, I won't say there was massive election fraud because there wasn't massive election fraud. That is part of saying election fraud means something. It means something in the law.
Right.
Election rules mean something, and they have not been broken in the way that you suggest. And that is relying on a kind of notion of what the law is that requires law to be law. And so if we don't have that, where are we? We really are just in a power grab. And like, you better be sure that you're on the winning end of that if you're going to play that game. And I don't trust anybody with that much power. I like the liberal democracy idea that there's a check, even if we can understand that it's an imperfect check.